Thank you for joining us today. The Small Business Development Series is brought to you by the District of Quincy, Illinois, and through a grant from the Illinois Main Street Program. Today we're going to talk about purchasing downtown properties and evaluating properties and coming to a conclusion of whether or not that would be a good investment for you. Basically, as a start, you want to evaluate different steps to owning a downtown property. Of course, a first step would be to identify a property that you're interested in. And then we're going to talk about evaluating a property in terms of financial aspects of it and also some of the characteristics that go into successful development. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about resources for improving the property that can be an assistance or grants or other types of financing or developmental aid. Identifying the property, or the so-called fun part. Well, we have lots of options here. You're going to look at 2-3-story buildings in a downtown. A lot of these buildings will be on smaller lots. You've got density. So you're looking for a lot of different things, characteristics that make a historic building stand out from the crowd. Possibly a building that is in need of renovation that you could get a good deal on, and something that's historically significant to the streetscape. Or possibly something that's already more developed, a group of buildings and controls parking or a significant corner, and something that could be developed even further to increase value. So what makes a good property? Well, oftentimes it's just historically significant and stands out from the crowd. Does it have a presence, is how you might say that? And if so, what does that convey to people? Is it historic? Is it institutional? Does it have an area where people congregate? Does it have a high traffic area? Do you control your area? Is it a good mix of residential, commercial? Does it have a parking lot? Things of that nature. And even though this may be an overlooked one, do you like it? Are you going to be interested in owning it? Is it something that you've sought to be invested in? And whenever your interest is high in something that you do, your chances of success would be greater. So is it on the market? This is a question that comes up all the time. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Of course, the very first area to start would be your local area realtor multiple listing system website, MLS website. You can always get online and find that pretty easily in your area, and it'll give you a listing of what's out there. You can also look at city and county foreclosure and tax sales. Those are another great avenue to find out what properties might be distressed or in need of financial help and find a bargain or a good deal. And then there's the direct approach, as we like to call it. Sometimes people don't even know they want to sell their property, and the direct approach can just be going and finding that building that you're interested in and sparking up a conversation with whoever owns it and possibly working out a deal that way before it even hits the online sales sites or before it gets involved in any sort of listing. And that also can be a great avenue for finding a deal and also targeting a building that you really would like to own. Evaluating the property, maybe the not so fun but very important part, and something that you need to spend a great deal of attention to. So we're going to talk about the money in your pocket, or the income side. You need to evaluate commercial and residential rent. A good focus on finding a property that will work is having a mix of commercial and residential in a downtown area, because then you never have an income stream that's just solely one or the other. You can find that your commercial might be vacant, but your residential is doing good, or vice versa. Terms of leases. When you're inheriting tenants in a downtown area, you want to make sure that you have strong leases, or leases that work for you, that are fair and rise to the level of the income that you're going to need to succeed in the property. Is there other income? Can you make money off of parking? Can you make money off of laundry, vending machines, things of that nature? Those can be great to help the bottom line, and for very little expense, you might find a good profit area there. So we call this the gross rent area, and that's going to be one of the terms we use when we bring this all together at the end for an evaluation of the property. Big ticket items. You're looking at the purchase price, obviously. That's an open negotiation always, and you should work to the best deal possible. That's probably a premise that most people understand, but there's some things that go into that, and you should look at all aspects of the property in terms of what you're wanting to leverage and pay out, and what a purchase price really is sustainable for owning the property. The condition. Most deals are made or broke in this area. Condition, you have to understand what repairs and maintenance need to go on, and these can also be very big ticket items. If you miss something like a roof or foundation, that could be very detrimental to your success in the property later. Taxes, always good to look into this. Make sure you understand these fixed expenses. Insurance being another one, those should be at the top of your list. These things together we refer to as the fixed expenses, and in that sense, these are the things that are going to be your biggest ticket items and have the most effect on the profit and loss of the property. Managing expenses, the devil in the details. There's a lot of things that factor in here. Vacancy rate is very important. Typically in the area of a downtown, you're going to see maybe a little higher vacancy rate, especially when you're talking commercial. So be conservative here and look at a factor of maybe 7 to 10%. Do you need a property manager? Are you in this to do it all? Are you going to be the owner, the developer, and the manager? Or are you going to be the owner and the developer and let someone else take care of these expenses for you, or these issues for you? And what are the expenses of that? Common area maintenance. In larger buildings, you're going to have to take care of some of this. Not only the area where tenants use as a common area, but also any of the utilities that would be in that area. And it's very important to understand that that's going to be an ongoing expense for the life of the time that you own the building. Cleaning, disposal, trash hoppers, exterior maintenance, landscaping, things of that nature are also very important and can add up to a lot, especially as the building grows in size or you're investing in a larger property. So we're going to refer to these as variable expenses. These are harder to factor. They're definitely things that you have to make a good estimate at, and you won't necessarily know them all. But do your homework and get as close as you can, and it'll lead to a better success rate. Also, when you look at this, when we look at the income and the fixed expenses and the variable expenses, we're going to arrive at a net operating income, which is a very important number for you to understand, and will be the gauge of all the future evaluations we do a little bit later in the presentation. So here we have an example evaluation sheet to help you make your decision. This is just going to be a brief overview for a second, and then we'll go into a little more detail, and then at the end we provide a link that you can actually get to this evaluation sheet on your own and use it for yourself. We're going to use an Excel document here. Again, this is just an evaluation overview. So we're looking at things like unit mix and the rent schedule, income, then the expenses, and then we're going to look at some of the financial data and how does that occur. So at the end of this, what if your numbers don't add up? You know, you get to the point where you're looking at this, you got an income, you got expenses, you got a profit and loss, and you're just saying to yourself, I don't think that can make it. That's a little too thin for me, and the risk and the reward just don't add up. Well, sometimes you maybe need to take a little step further and see if there's other places that can assist you. In a downtown area, there's a lot of incentives available. There's encouragement for development, and there's programs that want to help you leverage that. So look for those. Tax credits. There's historic and federal tax credits, and those are also things that you could take a look at. Sometimes those are available, more information available through your city and county. Then there could be special financing. That could be through traditional methods like a bank lender. It could also be through your city, county area, and those are definitely programs that you should look into. And number one, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's others that have gone before you, and they should be able to lend you some assistance. And if you're very interested, I think you'll be able to find those people that could provide assistance for you. Here's a few examples in a little more detail of some programs you might look at. On the municipal side, TIF district or enterprise zone, these are two different animals that have been historically very helpful for people in development. A TIF district is a special taxing district that encourages development within it, and an enterprise zone is another type of developmental tool used to keep taxes down in an area or possibly spur other type of development. A lot of municipalities, including Quincy, have a revolving loan fund in their district, and this is something that has a lower interest rate, maybe a longer payback period, sort of a bridge gap financing mechanism that you should look into. There's also a ton of energy efficiency programs out there through city, county, state, even through some private utility companies that you could look into that will provide assistance for things like heating, air conditioning, windows, roof, anything that improves the energy efficiency of the building, which not only helps you on the dollar for dollar side at the beginning, but also helps you long term over your costs of owning and operating the building. From a regional standpoint, statewide or area-wide, there's lots of historic preservation groups. Several of those have programs that lend themselves towards downtown buildings. If you're willing and able to do it in a sense that preserves a lot of the historic nature of the building, then there's definitely some incentive programs out there for you. There's also regional economic development foundations and the loans that they can provide. And these sometimes can overlap with the municipal loans and bring together several sources of financing that could help you be successful in negotiating and owning a property. On a federal level, there's 20% federal tax credit for historic buildings, and there's 10% credit for buildings that are in the area but maybe aren't historic. These are tax credits that you can use against the expenses of what it takes to develop and own the building, and possibly reduce your own income tax burden and get a benefit there. So sort of in the long term aspect of looking at how that ownership could help you. And again, don't be afraid to ask for help. Many people have used these programs. You've got city, state, county, even on up to federal programs, and all of those people have ambassadors and representatives that you can get in touch with and help. And the district website has quite a bit of information. The City of Quincy website has quite a bit of information, so look further and do your homework on those, and all of these aspects could help you bridge the gap to owning that building. Improving the property. We'll call this back to the fun part, and we put maybe in there just because we want to remind you to do your homework and make sure that you're understanding what needs to be done in the property, both in coming into it and also into ownership down the line. The number one thing to remember is that improvements do equal income. A lot of people get bogged down in looking at improvements as only being cash out the door. You need to look for opportunities in buildings that are improving your ability to charge more rent. These things are going to raise your appraisal value, your assessed value, in determination of what you could sell the building for later on. So really do have a positive outlook about improvements equaling income, and use opportunities in finding buildings that could use that help and make yourself a profit that way, as well as through the ownership and the cash rent. We talk about renovation assistance, much like when you're purchasing a property. After you've purchased it and you get into it, there's other programs that can help you through the renovation. The historic district, or the district here in Quincy, does have a design assistance program that is in partnership with the state. We can look at plans and designing. You need to bring a pretty good plan to the table, but then they can help you negotiate some of this assistance, and maybe even pay for some of that design assistance and give you some help. Numerous different types of facade programs. Quincy has a couple different ones. There's a few organizations, Quincy Preserves, Historical Society, even the city itself can help in this aspect, and as long as you're willing and able to work with the historic nature of the facade, then these programs can provide a very good assistance in terms of dollars for renovation. Also, the city of Quincy runs a sales tax exception program. So if you apply for, get a building permit, and you're in this district area, you can get sales tax waived on building materials. So that can be a huge expense saved. And last but not least, building permit fees waived or reduced in certain areas of the district, or actually throughout the district. You can get these fees reduced or waived, and that can be another cost savings. So, with that in mind and all those little areas talked about briefly, let's look at a case study that brings it together a little bit. This is a building at downtown Quincy on the corner of 8th and Main, 729, 731 Main. It's actually two buildings that were linked together years ago internally. Encompasses a pretty large size of a downtown street corner. 8 apartments, 3 commercial spaces, and a parking lot also included in this, which is what we talked about earlier is do you like the property? In this case, it's a very stately looking property, one of the key properties downtown. Does it have a commercial residential mix? Yes, it does, definitely. The condition of the property was decent, could be upgraded and improved, but was a good base. And it definitely controlled the area by having a parking lot, multiple street access areas, and in general, easy ways to get in and out of the building. So on the income side, this is just a closer in view of that evaluation sheet that you can download later. So on the income side, this is just a closer view of the evaluation sheet that you can download later. This is the income side where we evaluated, there's 11 units in this building, so 3 commercial and 8 residential. You can see kind of square footage is good to know, rent, what you're going to get, actual now. Again, be conservative on this. This isn't a time to have all your improvements built up in the property. Just what is it as you're sitting there today, and how can you evaluate that? And then below there you can see you got a gross rental number. You want to factor in vacancy. This had a good residential mix, so the vacancy was probably going to be a little bit lower, evaluated at about 7%. And then other income, like we talked about, in this case there's a coin-op laundry in the building and some parking spots, and generate a little bit of extra income, but definitely factor that in and maybe even how you could improve that later. And when you get down to the bottom, this is your total income, or what we would call gross rents. Evaluating expenses. This is another area in that spreadsheet that you can download and plug in your own numbers. These are very good things to evaluate. Again, this is a make or break part. Evaluating purchase price and fixed expenses, like we talked about, is fairly easy. You can get those numbers and be very close. But where are you on things like advertising and cleaning and disposal, and factor in snow removal in a downtown area? So here's just a kind of a brief overview of a few categories, but you could add or subtract anything from that sheet that makes sense for you. And when you get down to the bottom, you got your taxes, utilities in common areas, and you get a total expense number. That gross rents number minus these fixed and variable expenses is going to lead you to an important number, and that's your net operating income, or your NOI. Some people refer to it as your gross cash flow, but net operating income is really a good number to know. This is going to be the basis for your entire financial evaluation when you get done. Determining the financing, or the bottom line. Here is just a overview. It's in the evaluation sheet that you can download as a helpful tool. The things you're going to need to know here are your purchase price, obviously, include any commissions in that. What are you paying for the building in total? Definitely want to look at, do you have bank fees, closing costs, are there any loan fees from any other loans, your appraisals, things like that. And then also very important is factor in what you think you're going to need for repairs that are the ones you have to do immediately coming into the building. The next box down, you see that category called total outlay, and that's all those numbers factored together. The sheet has a pretty quick and easy way to factor in what cash you're going to be putting in, the rate and the term of your loan, and that'll get you to a number that you see on the side there that's called debt service. When you minus your net operating income that you've had from above and you take away your debt service, that's going to get you to what your real projected cash flow is net. So this is the money that is after all of your rent is collected and after all of your expenses and after all of your debt is paid. This is the money that you're going to put in your pocket. So this is a very important number so that you can evaluate, is this right for me in terms of a cash flow standpoint. And then there's some other different ways to evaluate the property below, and these will be helpful in terms of talking to your financial and lending institutions and what people would like to see your basis of how secure you are in what you're doing here. Appraisal value, debt service ratio is a number that is very important for lending institutions, and basically that's how much coverage you have between the income you're bringing in and the debt that you're going to have to pay them. Typically a number of 1.2 or better is what the bank is looking for. Loan to value, LTV, is another important number to know where you're at when your loans. So use that sheet and go through that, and you get a lot of different evaluation methods in a way to come up with some numbers that can help you decide on whether you're going to move forward. Here's a link to the property evaluation worksheet that's actually hosted on the District Quincy's website. Once you get there and you click on this download, go down the page a little bit and you'll see a thing that says property pro forma, and you can have the Excel version, or you can just pop off a quick PDF version if you just want to take it with you, or you can download the Excel version. It's fully integrated and has all the formulas, and you can take a look at that, and should be a helpful tool for you. So we're going to come up to a conclusion here. It's just a brief overview of a bunch of different things. Obviously there's a lot that goes into evaluating whether you want to own a property or not, and whether it's going to be financially conducive to do so. So maybe these will be a few helpful tools for you. And when you're thinking about this, remember a few points. What's motivating your factor for property purchase? Have you always liked historic buildings? Are you in it from a cash flow standpoint only? Do you feel like it's a wealth building thing for future investment? A legacy purchase for something that might be a family-owned business and then other income coming around it? But really core down to what you're interested in the most and determine what that factor is, and then use that and keep using that as a guiding light for whether you're going to move forward. Look for assistance. There's no doubt that this is a big thing to tackle on your own. Whether it's financial assistance, legal assistance, city, county assistance. There's lots of people that have been through this process before. Friends and family are always good to lean on as well. But look around you and don't be afraid to ask for help, because it's going to be very important to your success. And evaluate carefully. We gave a brief overview of an evaluation sheet, but there's other methods to evaluation too. I mean, it has to make sense for you to do this from a financial standpoint, and don't let just the heart go. You have to look at it in dollars and cents too. So be careful to drill down to those numbers and make sure that you do a good job evaluating everything from all angles. And then finally, what's the risk and what's the reward? What are you getting out of this? What do you want to see? Again, is this a long-term investment? Most property is. Very few times, if you're looking at risk-reward and you're trying to do a quick flip, this is probably not the area or the buildings that you want to be focused on. You're really looking at a long-term investment with a potential huge upside, but you have to evaluate that and how long that might take, and is that a good wealth-building exercise for you in the future. So bring all these points together. Use the evaluation sheet, look for assistance, and really determine what your goal is behind ownership and whether that's a good choice for you. We hope you've enjoyed the webinar. There's always more information available at the district website, and there's other webinar episodes in this series that we hope you take a look at. And once again, we want to remind you that the Small Business Development Series was brought to you through the District Quincy, through a grant through the Illinois Main Street Program.